The final burst of campaigning before Election Day. Which states are in focus? Coronavirus affecting college football and Love Hate 8 Halloween edition. Here's what you need to know. Good morning. This is Cheddar's Need2Know podcast for Friday, October 30th. I am Jill Wagner with Carlo Versano. Hey, Carlo.
Happy Friday Talk, Jill. How are we today? I missed you yesterday.
Thank you. And a big thanks to Baker for filling in. I don't know why I always laugh when you say happy Freitag. It like comes out of nowhere and it just kind of makes me giggle.
I had a teacher who used to say that. So I don't know back in high school. So I don't know why. Friday Talk, German for Friday, if in case anyone's wondering.
All right, let's get to the news here. The U.S. has recorded more than 90,000 new cases of coronavirus on Thursday. So that is a new daily record. We are now surpassing 9 million total cases since the start of the pandemic. What began as a surge in the upper Midwest has spread as far as New Mexico and Texas. 41 states are now seeing a rise in infections. 13 states are setting new highs when it comes to hospitalizations, and calls are growing for a nationwide mask mandate.
Fauci, I believe, was the latest to say that he would support that. So I mean, we're certainly not going to get it under a Trump administration, but it does certainly seem like that is becoming sort of the conventional wisdom, Jill. And I'm glad that you mentioned hospitalizations because I just can't say it enough. That's really the metric that you got to watch because hospitalizations lead to deaths. When beds are full, that means people can't get these treatments that are going to help them. I do want to do a very quick level set sort of on the vaccine race because we've sort of got a bunch of news in the last couple of weeks that kind of I wouldn't say that it's bad news, but it sort of dampens the theory that we're getting a momentarily, as President Trump has been saying on the campaign trail. That's not happening. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. So let me just explain. Dr. Fauci moved the goalposts a little bit this week in an interview. He said that we're looking at January or later for a vaccine. Pfizer had their earnings report this week. They said that the first interim analysis of their phase 3 trials hasn't happened yet, which basically means that not enough people in those trials have become infected with coronavirus on their own for them to analyze, the data against the placebo. Pfizer has been really aggressive, and they had originally hoped to know whether their vaccine worked in late September. That was then pushed to late October. Now they're saying they're hoping for FDA approval by mid-November. But again, they still need more data from these trials to even get there. All of this is just to say I think we should, as a country, just sort of reset our expectations a bit. This is all still happening at literal warp speed. And it's great, and it's truly going to be one of, knock on wood, going to be one of the, greatest medical breakthroughs of our lifetimes. But I just think that we got to get away from thinking that, you're going to wake up one day and there's going to be an announcement that a vaccine is here.
Yeah, I'm still going on the timeline from the Atlantic writer James Hamblin, who basically, he told me, I asked him just, when might we be able to go to just a concert without wearing a mask, like normal, sitting next to other people? And he said summer of 2022. So like that's my kind of barometer here.
God, you always depress me when you say that, but you're probably right.
But that would be like the biggest thing that we could do, right? I mean, that would be that's the most at risk super spreader type
right.
of event, right? So other things we'll be able to do before
Sure.
that, right? But it's just going to happen but that to me is when that's like the sign of normal. Is
I get
to
you.
go to a concert. Clemson Tigers quarterback Trevor Lawrence, a frontrunner for the Heisman Trophy, he is tested positive for COVID. He's going to miss this weekend's game against Boston College. He has not missed a start since he took over as QB for the Tigers back in 2018. Due to ACC COVID protocols, he's also at risk of missing Clemson showdown against Notre Dame next weekend.
I'm glad that you mentioned college football, Jill, because I was gonna mention this yesterday on the pod, but I couldn't have done that without you here. Your Big Ten prediction came true. It was a little late, so it doesn't count. But tomorrow's Nebraska-Wisconsin game has been canceled. Graham Mertz, he's the star quarterback of Wisconsin, and his backup. They both have to sit for 21 days after testing positive. That's actually a little bit interesting, right? Because Trevor Lawrence in the ACC at Clemson, he has to sit for 10 days. The Big Ten protocol is among the more stringent of any of the conferences in college football. The conference said the main reason is so they can do cardiac tests to see if the virus was affecting these players' hearts, which is something that we had worried a little bit about in the sort of earlier days of the pandemic. But the good news is a new paper from some leading cardiologists suggests that they're not really seeing many heart abnormalities in COVID positive athletes. So that's a good sign. And a lot of folks now wondering if the 21-day sit-out mandate is a little too strict.
Yeah, I mean, because now for Wisconsin, and I'm not going to comment on the health protocols, but when you think about essentially for Wisconsin, like half of their league, I mean, half of their season is basically over at this point. Because if it's 21
Right.
days and you have to think some other players may have it or maybe getting diagnosed later. But some of these teams, like Ohio State, have essentially created their own bubble to try to keep everybody safe. Sources, aka my husband, who's like fan number one at Ohio State, he told me that even the Ohio State coaches and the staff are just not even living at home right now to ensure that they don't get the virus. So the season is short; it's only 8 weeks, so that's maybe a little bit more doable. But of course, Wisconsin is showing it's hard to get this right. There's very little margin of error here.
That's the problem, right? But it's just there's something so off about this idea that to me at least, that we're still even playing college football. We're in the worst place we've been, at least in terms of infections, not deaths. There's just something very odd about like sort of pretending like things are normal. I don't know. I'm not a big college football fan, so it's hard for me to understand. I know a lot of people get a lot of joy from it, and I know that it is a huge moneymaker. So I guess you just shouldn't listen to me on this.
I was gonna say I'm not even gonna go back and forth with you on this because no one wants to hear it. I think it just shows there's no good answer. There's
really
no right
isn't.
thing. There's just a bunch of
Everybody's trying.
kind of like it's like the best you can do with no good option. All right, let's talk politics. 4 days until Election Day, the two campaigns right now fanning out across swing states in this final push before Election Day. So Joe Biden is going to be joined by his former boss, President Obama, on the campaign trail in Michigan this weekend. Kamala Harris is being dispatched to Texas today, a sign the campaign thinks that it actually has a chance of flipping the Lone Star State this cycle. President Trump is going to be making a last swing through Pennsylvania after he hits Michigan, Minnesota, and Wisconsin today.
Ooh, this Texas is getting really interesting to me. I still don't think it's going to happen, but look at these numbers. More than 8.4 million people have voted early in Texas. That is 94% of the total vote in 2016 in that state. It's so funny, right? Because if you asked me a few months ago about the election, I would have been like, the turnout this election is going to be disastrous just because of the pandemic. People aren't going to go out and vote if cases are still rising. And I couldn't have been more wrong. I mean, this is really going to be a potentially record-setting turnout election. And I know, the sort of the joke is like, well, every election is it all comes down to turnout, but it really does. And if turnout is as big as it's looking, I think that's a good sign for Biden's campaign. But again, we'll see. We're almost there. I'm really worried about next week, by the way.
One of the storylines that on this issue of turnout is that young people have actually showed up, right? Every year, I feel like every big election, we say, oh, not only is it a turnout thing, it's will young people show up? And a lot of these candidates count on young people showing up, and then they don't. But in this case, they are a lot of first-time voters.
And there's been a lot of feature stories in the big papers about old voters who haven't been engaged in electoral politics in their entire lives, who are actually voting for the first time. So there's some really interesting things that are happening. just this cycle that I don't think we'll really know, the full details about for a while. But it's going to be fascinating for political scientists to look back on this. But yeah, next week is going to be really intense. I'm not going out this weekend. I'm basically isolating myself this weekend just to prepare.
So you're doing an election bubble, not a COVID bubble, an
Yes,
election
exactly.
bubble.
Exactly. I'm gonna eat well. I'm gonna sleep a lot. I'm not gonna drink at all. I'm just gonna make sure that I am sharp as a tack for next week, Joel.
In fighting form. Just
Yes, exactly.
I don't want to go on too much of a tangent here, but what are you so worried about?
Well, I'm worried that we're not going to have a result on Wednesday morning, and then it's just anybody's guess what happens. I'm really worried about unrest. You see the story in the Journal today about Walmart taking guns and ammunition off
Yeah,
their shelves
I'm
ahead
glad
of
you
next
mentioned
week.
that.
Yeah, just basically saying like, we're not taking any chances. They're that's the nation's biggest retailer, and they're saying, they're not taking any chances ahead of possible unrest next week. So I don't know. I mean, I don't want to scare anybody, but it's just I just have like sort of a pit in my stomach about it.
All right. Well, hopefully that won't play out, right? But I
Oh
see where
God,
you're coming
I
from.
hope, I hope we have a winner on Wednesday morning, Jill, and one way or another, at least it's done and dusted, right?
Look, even if we don't have a winner, hopefully we won't have violence, and such civil unrest over it. And actually could let the process play out. Okay,
Right.
let's switch gears here. More than 2 million homes and businesses are without power across 7 states in the wake of Tropical Storm Zeta. At least 6 people have died, mostly from trees falling on their homes. Louisiana's Jefferson Parish sustained, quote, catastrophic damage, according to the governor. And search and rescue operations are still underway there. Some Georgia counties have had to delay the opening of early voting.
And yeah, this thing is, I mean, it's been raining here for like feels like weeks, but I guess it's only been like a day and a half. But the remnants of this storm, moving fast, will now push out over the Northeast today. But it's going to leave the first snow of the season, some areas of New York and New England. I've even heard through the grapevine that some schools in the New York suburbs were closed for snow day today, which is wild. And Jill, get this: there is another disturbance in the Caribbean that forecasters are monitoring. If that thing gets organized enough to get named, we will officially break 2005's Atlantic hurricane record. So we'll have to see over the next couple of days. Remember, hurricane season actually technically goes until November 30th, so we have another month.
Superstorm Sandy was, I think, the
Yeah, it was
20th.
Halloween, right?
Yeah, it was yeah, it was October. It was either October 29th. I think it was October 9th. I think it was yesterday.
Yeah, 8 years
In
ago.
terms of the
Wow.
anniversary, 8 years ago. Yeah. So, um, it's certainly just we're not out of the woods just yet.
Yeah.
I want another really important story. Overseas, French police say a 21-year-old Tunisian national who came into the country through Italy is responsible for brutally murdering 3 worshippers at a cathedral in Nice. One of the victims is a 70-year-old woman. She was reportedly decapitated. President Emmanuel Macron says the country is under attack and he's urging unity. And it's the second terrorist attack in France in less than 2 weeks.
We hit on this. This was breaking as we were recording yesterday, so we do have a little bit more information now. There was also a separate attack yesterday in Saudi Arabia where a guard outside of the French consulate was stabbed. He is expected to survive. We don't think there's no reason to think that those two incidents are related in the sense that they're part of a plot. They're more likely than not just separate sort of lone wolf incidents. But as I mentioned yesterday with Baker, Joel, France is in the process, in addition to being back under COVID lockdown and having a major health crisis there. They're undergoing a major falling out with a lot of the Muslim world. There have been protests the last couple of weeks in Bangladesh, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, other Muslim countries. There have been boycotts of French goods across the Muslim world. A lot of Muslims saying that Macron is demonizing the entire religion, though he says he's taking on an ideology, not a religion, and that there's a distinction there. France is famously bad when it comes to integrating its Muslim population into society. Probably, this is a problem across Europe, but it's particularly bad in France. The the country takes its secularism extremely seriously, as it should. It was founded on it, right? But as I said, I think last week when we were talking about this story, in the context of the death of Samuel Paty, who was the teacher in France, who showed his students the what do you call it, the cartoons of Muhammad. To me at least, freedom of expression is just one of those ideals that's not up for debate. And I think being able to legally able to print and show offensive cartoons, to me, no matter who is offended by them, that just doesn't rise to the level of hate speech or bigotry. And I know that may be somewhat controversial, but I sort of stand with Macron on this. Like, this is, you have to, you can't equivocate on some of this stuff.
One thing to watch here is that this is turning into a pretty big war of words between France and Turkey. France
Yeah.
pretty much accusing Turkey and its president Erdogan of trying to incite violence. And Turkey is called for a boycott of French products. It's France now, telling people to who are in Turkey, its citizens, to take extreme caution. I don't know. So I think just something to watch. A lot of people are surprised that it's escalated so quickly between Turkey and France.
And yeah, I mean, if you look at some of these pictures of some of these protests, I mean, they're burning effigies of Macron. There's graffiti of him as the devil. He is really sort of persona non grata across the Muslim world right now. It's definitely something worrisome that we got to keep an eye on.
Back here in the US, we did get some pretty good economic news yesterday, though, like everything else, it's a bit of a mixed bag. So the US economy grew at its sharpest pace on record in the third quarter. So we got the GDP numbers. So GDP climbed 7.4% in the July through September period. But the economy is still a lot smaller than it was pre-COVID. So we're recovering in some ways, but we're not quite there yet. So just remember that this was the GDP reading for summer when a lot of things were reopening. People were still getting enhanced employment benefits, unemployment benefits, and those stimulus checks. So it's likely Q4 not going to be quite as good in terms of economic growth. So one way to look at this is, yes, we had the sharpest decline in the quarter before. Then we had the sharpest increase, but we're still only like 2/3 of the way back to where we were.
Yeah, what I found most interesting in this data, with what you and I have been saying on the pod for months now, is that it's really like this tale of two economies, right? Some areas of the economy, like consumer spending on quote unquote stuff, right? Like cars, fitness gear, appliances, that's all doing very well. But others, like consumer spending on quote unquote services, like hotel stays, right, plane tickets, sporting events, concerts, that has plummeted. The problem is that the decline in service spending is bigger than the gain in stuff spending, if that makes sense. So that's one of the issues. The other issue, of course, is just the decimation of those service industries, right? Hospitality, travel, leisure, theater, movies, entertainment. So, even if you can make up for that with people buying new cars and putting new decks on their house or whatever, that doesn't do you any good if you are a professional in the hotel industry, for instance. I guess the upshot is that, because there wasn't this like exogenous event like there was in 2008 with like the housing bubble, once we can control the virus, it seems at least like we can get those things relatively quickly back moving. Right? Like people will go to restaurants again because at least if they're still employed and still getting income. But we just have to get there. We have to get the virus under control, and we're not doing that.
Meanwhile, some news that you can use: Netflix hiking prices again. The price of a standard Netflix subscription in the US going from $13 to $14 a month. That's effective whenever your next billing cycle renews. The premium plan is going up $2 to $18. The basic plan is staying at $9.
Yeah, so I have I don't know if I've ever told this to you, a confession to make that everybody in my life makes fun of me for, but I'll tell you guys because we're family, right? I still have a Netflix DVD subscription. I don't know why people make fun of me for that. Yeah, everybody has that exact reaction. I still get the red envelopes. It's like a little present in the mail, like once a week. And then my wife and I, we haul out our ancient DVD player, and we plug it in and we watch whatever came. So I still like it. And I honestly, when people come to my house and they like see the red envelope, 100% of the time they're like, who are you? Like, what planet are you living on? Like, you can stream movies now. But that's a confession for our Need2Know family here. If anybody else gets them, please tell me, because I literally don't know anybody else who still gets the envelopes. I can't be the only one.
We just unpacked we just unpacked boxes from many years of storage, of putting stuff in storage. And it's a shame that DVDs are not what they used to be, because like the collection between me and my husband is
Oh my
crazy.
God. Don't get me started on this. Jill, I spent, if I could go back in time, I think the first thing I would do would be to tell myself as like a 15-year-old not to buy, not to spend all of my disposable income on DVDs, right? What an unbelievable way.
Or CDs. CDs, even worse. Okay, let's do a little bit of Love Hate 8.
Let's do it.
And this week, one thing that we love, seeing photos of our friends' kids dressed up for Halloween. It might be one of the only times we're generally interested in seeing their pictures. I hate to say it, even as someone who has a child. I feel like you even humor me when I send you pictures of my daughter. You're like,
no, I actually
you say
don't.
you love it, but I wonder if you do.
No, I really do. I really do, but it may only be because your daughter is particularly like just eatable, if you could say that. Like, she's just so friggin' cute. And I'm looking forward this week to pictures of her as Peppa Pig, because I don't think
I just love though. Up. No, right. I love seeing kids dressed up in Halloween costumes. It's so cute.
It's the best. Okay, one thing that we hate. The lack of assortment in present-day Halloween candy variety bags. I feel like whenever you go to the store and you're trying to get Halloween candy, it's always some combination of like Milky Way, Reese's, Snickers, maybe a Three Musketeers, if you're lucky. It's like it doesn't all have to be chocolate. I mean, as we've established on this podcast in this very segment, I'm a sort of sour candy person. So every time I see like a Starburst, Skittles, Sour Patch Kid variety pack, I'm picking that thing up. That's a game changer right there.
I'm just thinking though, but everything's wrapped, right? Because you can't have something sour with it'll get all over everything.
No, they're in like the little individual wrappers.
I'm showing how little I know about packaged Halloween candy at this point, which is so sad. One thing that we ate, and this one is courtesy of our colleague Brian, all of the candy that we bought for the trick-or-treaters who are just not going to come. So I don't know about you, but we can just get started on it early.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem. When you live in New York City, you don't get, it's not like it is in the suburbs. It's just, you don't get a lot of trick-or-treaters. And I think this year will probably be even more so. But nevertheless, guys, it is Halloween tomorrow. Be safe out there. Also, don't forget, very important, daylight savings time, Saturday night into Sunday. This is the bad one. This is the one where you push the clocks back an hour. So don't forget to do that. Be safe and, get some rest. Next week is going to be intense.
All right, but you do get an extra hour of sleep this week.
Yeah, for like one day. Like, who cares?
All right. That's what you need to know for Friday, October 30th.
Have a good weekend, guys.